everyone, what's up and welcome to TV Guys. Now, do you tend to screw everything up? Well, guess what? You can get a mentor who will tell you just how you're screwing things up. We got life coaches we're talking about today. I am Brian's life coach, so you're welcome, Brian.
Yikes.
It would also explain why Brian's life is on the downward spiral. So sorry
Yeah,
about that.
it's all good. I'm Brian, and I should not be anyone's life coach.
I should be your life coach because I've got a lot of great wisdom. Plus, I can see if the things that I kind of want to try for myself work or not. And if they don't work with you, I'll know not to do it. And if they do work for you, then I'll do it too.
Yeah.
So give me a call. Well, we are going to let's talk about like the best life coach. There are a ton of like great life coaches. I mean, if you watch movies, you can easily think of like some guys like Mr. Miyagi. Like, I would love for this guy to teach me karate
Yeah.
because he's got it going on.
And there's so many different types of mentors you see on TV. Like there's like the like they said the Mr. Miyagi, like, or like the Mr. Feeney's, the older kind wise guy you think of, but they're really, you think of any kind of person you can find a good mentor. And that's why, like, I have a list. I have one that I'm going to specifically talk about that, and they're all so different, and it's just not what you would think of, really.
Yeah, it's and that's the nice thing, because like in real life, like, to be honest, if you're going to look for someone to mentor you, look for people that are doing things that you're not. And it doesn't have to be like you agree with them in everything. Like, there might be some people like they're in this job and the way that they do their job is awesome and I want to do my job like them, but they might like suck at life. So you can be like, you just tell me like how you got to where you are like with your job, and so I can emulate that. So I've got like a guy as like my top. I'm like, this guy is awesome. I think in all facets I really would respect him and appreciate him. But then that kind of like bumped another guy that I thought I would include, because like I
Yeah.
think his personal life is probably
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So we can jump right into it. So Brian, tell me, I want to know who is the best life coach on TV in the history of ever.
Okay, this is going to be a surprising pick because
All right.
at the beginning of this show, you this is definitely not someone you want to have as a life coach. And I think I can identify.
Zordon.
No, Zordon is a terrible life coach. Okay, I know I was in the middle of introing my life pick, but let's just take a detour. If you watch Power Rangers, you know what happens? All the time, Zordon's like, oh, this evil bad guy showed up. I always knew he would come one day. So we have this great weapon that's the only weapon that can defeat him. It's like, why didn't you tell us about all the cool weapons? And why don't you just sit us down and say, here's all the bad guys that might come up, and here's how you defeat them, instead of waiting for it to happen? I know it's because they're using the footage from Japan, but they just wrote it so sloppily. Like, and I was like, oh, thank you, Zordon. Like, no, tell us up front where all the cool stuff is and who all the bad guys are, because you have, every time someone comes up, you're like, yes, my old nemesis again.
How many people did you piss off, Zordon? All right, I've called you together to fight this ancient evil. Dude, we're like technically minors, right?
Yeah. Speaking about a mentor with minors, I bet I can identify my mentor with one word. Quiet! I'm going to say Johnny Lawrence from Cobra Kai.
That is a really interesting pick.
It is, because it's so interesting, because I haven't seen all of the Karate Kid movies, but I think he was just the generic villain back then. It's like, oh, he's the bully kid. And at the start of the show, he is in no position to be anyone's mentor, but you really see him grow and find something to fight for throughout the show, and especially with him and Miguel. That is a great relationship right there, to the point where he is really one of the main people. Probably, I'd say the main reason that Miguel it gets back on his feet at the end of season in the end of season 3, or
spoiler,
yeah, or midway through season 3, when he starts to recover, because Johnny gets down to the point where he's a broken guy himself, and he gets Cobra Kai going to kind of have something to fight for. And at the beginning, he has all the same values of like strike first, no mercy, just go out and be the tough guy, be the badass. And he keeps some of that. He keeps his personality, but he also starts to gain some humanity as he actually starts to care about people, whether it's his son, Robbie, who he has a really strained, complicated relationship with, or with Miguel, or even with Daniel LaRusso, who they start with as as just complete mortal enemies. They both just hate each other. And how they see it keep going, where as you see throughout the seasons, they start to get some common ground and some common enemies. And of course, then there's the times when they, oh, I hate you again. No, I love you again. No, I hate you again. They don't say I love
Yeah.
you, but they don't go that far.
I hate you.
Yeah.
That's how those sorts of guys say I love you.
Yeah. But Cobra Kai, I think, is really Johnny Lawrence's story. I think he should be billed first. I know Ralph Macchio was billed first, but I mean, it's really the story of how does this guy go from being an 80s bully to being like a real mentor, and it's probably the best influence in Miguel's life that he has.
Yeah. I mean, you to know that it is 100% Johnny Lawrence's story. You just look at, excuse me, you look at the pilot episode, and it was like really it was a split of like 90-10 versus 90% about Johnny, and Ralph Macchio's character was in there about 10%. Yeah, we see a lot of Ralph Macchio's because I mean that's just what you do with these shows as you expand on those characters. But yeah, it was launched because of Johnny Lawrence's wherever he was in life, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I like Johnny Lawrence a lot as a character. I think if we're gonna call him a mentor, I think I would agree where it's like it's probably too soon, but his heart really is in the right place.
Yeah.
Like there is this political incorrectness about him that at times is exactly what's needed. Because I mean, there are things that in a politically correct culture we tiptoe around, and because we don't want to offend, we don't address it head on. I think a great example is his first motivation of Hawk in season 1.
Yeah.
Where before he's Hawk, he's like got this lip deformity, and Johnny Lawrence pretty much says like, I'm going to keep calling you Lip until you flip the script, until you make me see another part of you. Like when people look at you, this is really what it is. No one's else is gonna say this to you. People look at you and they see the deformity. They just do. You've got to show them a different side of you. Yeah. And he took that to heart, and he did. And it went too far in him. Yeah. But I mean, that wasn't just Johnny's fault that went too far. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that would be my pick for, as I was watching Cobra Kai, I'm just really compelled, and Johnny is the one that kept me going on the show. I probably would have watched it without Johnny, but it wouldn't be nearly as good, and I wouldn't have been hooked on it nearly as much.
Yeah, if I was going to say my top TV mentor of all time, I have a different pick, but it would be really hard to put someone over Mr. Feeney. I think what takes Mr. Feeney down is because his advice is so idealistic.
Yeah.
And idealistic doesn't always fit into reality. And I think that we see that now in like modern shows. Like the 90s was a lot more of like the idealistic. In an ideal world, this is how you would behave, and this is what you would be doing.
Yeah.
And there is a place for that. It's good to identify the ideals of what you really truly wish things could be like and shoot for that as a goal, but to also have the flexibility to be like, people aren't always going to respond the way that you want them to.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm going to do two picks right here, but what the one that I actually had written down is I would love to model my life after Ron freaking Swanson. That guy has like everything that I would want as a metric for success. He's got it. Now, I'm not so much of an outdoors guy like he is.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit more on the technology side, but like I agree with a lot of his political views. Like government overspending is such a problem, such an issue. I mean, you look at the nation's debt and you're like, yeah, we're trillions of dollars into debt. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And like some of his musings are just like, he does not have time for the bureaucracy of government. And his hope and his like ambition is all about like what's right for the taxpayer. That's a great political leader. And even though he's trying to dismantle the government from within, he still has really good governmental ideas. But he's also like a great pinnacle of like that man's man type of person.
Yeah.
Like and it's not like the toxic masculinity that like a lot of people will identify nowadays. It is like this classic style of being a man, because he is extremely supportive of women. He's he like, even to the point where like that's what he's attracted to, is strong women. And so it's like he is such a great female supporter. He won an award. He is a great boss in the fact that it was like he knows how to trust the people around him to do the things that he thinks that they should do. So it's like, I agree so much with his ideology on a lot of stuff. He'd probably be my pick.
Yeah, and he is very loyal. He's always a grump, but he will stand up for his people. Like when Chris came in and he's changing everybody's jobs around and kind of messing things up, he makes the deal like, okay, I will sit in this. I think what the deal was, I'll sit in this crazy circle desk if for a little while if everybody gets to go back, and he takes that sacrifice for his team. Kind of, and even though Chris wasn't really a villain, but Chris was just someone who didn't understand that team the way that Ron did. And even though Ron is likes to play that he's apathetic, he really isn't. He really just likes the way things are, and he knows that he's got the right people in the right spots to do what they need to do.
Yeah, he's not lazy, but like his job, he doesn't do a lot of his job because he wants to bring down the government. He doesn't find value in the work that he does, but he still finds a way to do it in a way that helps the people around him succeed. Yeah. And it's just really amazing the balance he's able to strike, because it's like, this is a character that in our current culture people could really hate and people could rally against. But like, and that's what's great about Parks and Rec, is you have a bunch of men on the show that are a bunch of different examples of how a man could be. Like you have the metrosexual Tom, you have you have Ron, of course. You have Chris, he's also a little bit of Chris, Andy. He's also a little bit of like the classic man's man, but not as successful. He's like that millennial man's man, so it's not the classic that. So you got like a bunch of different ones of like seeing this is someone that I could be like, or Ben, the nerdy one. It's a great example of all these different types of characters that you can look up to, but Ron's the one I connect with the most.
I think it's a great pick. I can't really say much bad things about Ron. I always say that Andy's my favorite character in Parks and Rec, but Ron is a close second. And Ron's just he's so funny, but he's also just so great. Moment with Ron to show the mentorship is, I think it's in the last season when April is trying to find the keys to Ron's house that she had lost so many years ago, and it ends up with this big moment where she's with Ron at this big tree, and she's saying, I buried this here because it reminded of you, because it's like big and strong and it will always be there for me. And April's the one that she's always going to be tough, like, I don't need anybody, I'm just going to be sarcastic. But even she loved the mentorship and the relationship she had with Ron.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and he's, that sort of person in your life. Like, I think there's a lot of people who have that, where it's like someone who they don't understand why we love what we love, but they still support us in it anyway. He doesn't understand Leslie's love for the parks or for government or whatever. He disagrees with her wholeheartedly, and he doesn't shy away from like a conflict with her, but he always does it with respect. And he respects her at the end of the day, because she is a strong woman and she can fight back and hit him back just as hard and push back on these things. And he has grown to respect that sort of relationship.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great pick. Did you have any like honorable mentions?
The one that kind of would be one that I'd like to put there, but I can't, because again, like his personal life is not the sort of personal life I want. Like with Ron, I love that, he might not be as much of a dad, even though he like exudes dad energy. Yeah. He might not have that much in his DNA, but once he, gets married and he inherits these two little girls and adopts them, like he does a pretty good job, even though he has a huge learning curve. Yeah. He does a good job of like, I'm just going to try and I'm going to do what I know to do.
And talk about respecting strong women. He marries frickin' Xena Warrior Princess.
He does. That's true.
I mean, she's not Xena. That's not a crossover, but it's the actress.
So the other pick that I was thinking about for a little bit was Jack Donaghy from 30 Rock.
Okay.
And he's someone that I would look up to just in business sense. Like, he's so professional. He is so well, like, mannered. He knows how to negotiate and how to go in and out of like the capitalist world. He's in love with capitalism, but that he also like he knows what people want. He knows how to reach people. And so like there was one episode that really highlights just how amazing of a businessman he is, and that's when he's Reaganing, which is like their term for like having a perfect day and everything is just working out, and he's able to like do all these major deals, and he comes up with all the right things to keep things moving on, and that's Reaganing. And so the whole episode is like him, like his administrative assistant is trying to keep Liz away from him because he's like, you will ruin this. You cannot ruin a man who's on the way to Reaganing his whole day. Like, this is a historic moment, and you just bring problems. You have to stay away from him. But it was a funny episode, and it just kind of highlighted like just how dang good this guy is at his job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't remember that exact episode, but Jack Donaghy definitely has that drive and determination, and that like I will succeed because I'm the best. Another one that I thought would be Dr. Cox from Scrubs.
Yeah, he's hit or miss.
Yeah, he is hit or miss. He's kind of in the same vein as Johnny Lawrence, where he can be really mean, but he's being mean. Like, he's mean to JD because he sees his potential and he wants to like sharpen him to be good, and he will let his guard down every now and then and admit that he actually cares about him. And at the same time, he's still learning as he goes as well.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. All of our picks that we're talking about, none of them have like a soft side.
No,
I mean, like, you know, they maybe they have a soft side, but like they're all pretty sharp and determined. You know, and Dr. Cox almost to the point of being a bully, but like he just stands up for what he believes. He's very hard-headed. He's very stubborn, to a fault. And I like that's kind of why I had thought about him, because Dr. Cox is a great character. Yeah, but like he is mean. And maybe you have to be that when you're in charge of these people who, if they do the wrong thing, they kill someone. Yeah, like we saw JD's leadership style when he first got interns. And he was a lot more of like I need to be your friend. And it actually allowed one of the characters who was not as good of a doctor to be at the hospital for longer than he should have. And it got people killed because of that. So, yeah, there's a time to be hard. There's a time to be soft. Yep. Well, anyone else on your list? Nothing major. I'm trying to think. How about Master Splinter from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Oh, that's a good one. Is he better than Zordon? I haven't seen much of that, actually. Splinter is tough because he is a hard character depending on the interpretation. Some of the Teenage Mutant, like, it really depends on which show or movie that you watch with him. But like, did you ever watch Daredevil or read Daredevil comics or anything? No, I didn't. So Daredevil has a mentor named Stick who trained him, and Stick is a jerk. Stick is a hard guy. He's like Johnny Lawrence on steroids, with no niceness or no redeeming qualities, but it's the same sort of thing. Like, it's life or death if you don't get this right. So I need to train you like this. So Stick was based off of Splinter. I mean, Splinter makes sense. Yeah. And so they took this hard rat and they turned it into that other guy. But Splinter is that, like, he is raising teenagers, and being a single dad raising 4 teenagers who are also karate fighters, who are also turtles that are mutants that don't have an outlet into the outside world. Like, the guy, he has patience, even though it doesn't always seem like he has patience for these kids. And so he had to be dad, he had to be mom, and he also had to be sensei. And so, like, some of the advice he gives, and like it's a great combination of the Feeney level of advice, the Ron Swanson level of like just be a man, that sort of thing, and the Johnny Lawrence of like stop being a wuss. Your enemies aren't going to treat you nice. You got to, he's a great combination of those, and he's a great pick to think. But I don't think like I didn't put him as my number one, my top, because I'm not a karate guy. I don't need to learn this stuff. I'm not in a war with foot soldiers. So
I don't know, but I picked him because it wasn't necessarily about the karate. It was about him being there for Miguel, and that's why I chose him.
Yeah, like Splinter, he really is like preparing him for a war, and like you have to be a certain different way when you know that they're the only hope that these guys have to defeat Shredder and his army.
Yeah. All right, that was a quick one, I think.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Like I love like looking at characters and their advice, and like these characters, like, oh, they have these touching moments. I know that you brought up when we were talking about this idea, you kind of brought up Wilson from Home Improvement. Did you continue to leave him out because of like that same thing with Feeney, like idealism?
Well, and he's too similar to Feeney. We kind of mentioned Feeney. I'm like, it's kind of the same with Wilson. The only thing is that he has more like weird tribal stuff with his advice, but other than that, it's the same.
I remember when we first started talking about this, I had someone that popped up into my mind, and I can't remember who it was, and I hate that because like I was like, oh, that's a great pick. That's a unique out of left field pick. That would be fun. And I can't remember it. So sorry, everyone. You have to suffer. I should get a life coach and teach me how to remember things better.
There you go. I'll do it. Remember things better. There you go.
Oh, man. You are a great life coach.
I know. I actually did come up with a trivia question, by the way, as we're talking, because I realized we hadn't gotten one.
Nice. Hit me with it. Actually, last week's was about Community.
It was. So we talked about the narrator in the Pillows and Blankets episode of Community, and who did that guy end up playing a Community? It was the actor Keith David, who came in the final season as Elroy Patashnik.
Elroy. Jesus wept!
That was the Dean.
That was the Dean, but it was Elroy's initial episode.
Yeah, it was. And Elroy is just a funny character, and Keith David just does a great job.
I like the episode of Community where they're doing the documentary at the wedding, and like he finally finds his spot in the wedding of like complimenting white people, making white people feel good. It was a great episode. And then
culminates with that line. It's like awkward silence. Now there's a man who knows how to marry his cousin.
Oh, man.
Don't give him any context. If you haven't seen it, no context.
Okay. Hashtag no context.
All right.
So this week's, go ahead.
Oh, do you have one?
No, you said you have one.
I do have one. You sounded like you were about to jump into the one. Anyways.
I'm gonna do my own. All right. What are we going to say?
This is something we've talked about here, so it's kind of as a lowball one. But a lot of the rivalry in Cobra Kai is about Johnny Lawrence, played by William Zabka, against Daniel Russo, played by Ralph Macchio. There was a sitcom that had these guys in it I think they were in a couple episodes, or maybe just one episode, and they kind of revived their rivalry just for the sitcom. And I'm not sure if that had anything to do with Cobra Kai being made, but what is the sitcom that brought back Ralph Macchio and William Zabka before Cobra Kai?
Yeah, I feel like it had to. That sitcom, like that joke, it had to have been like oh, you know what? We can make this happen.
Yeah. All right. So, Matt, why don't you tell us about the exciting thing we're going on next week?
Next week, we got my buddy Andrew. He is a special guest star. We are going to talk about crime shows. So, if you've watched one CSI, you've watched them all, let's be honest. But there's all these crime shows that they're on TV, and you're like, well, who did it? Who's the murderer? And you're trying to solve with these characters. But there are actually a lot of really good crime shows out there. So Andrew's going to come in, and he's going to share some of his picks. And then, of course, Brian and I, we're going to share ours as well.
Yep. It'll be a fun time. I have to look through. I have a few that I've watched, so I'm not sure what I'm going to pick yet.
Yep. Criminal Minds, or Anna will like riot if you don't pick that, I guess.
No spoilers, but yes.
No spoilers. I have to.
It's also a really good show.
I've never seen it, as we covered before with her voicemail yelling at me.
Yeah.
So. Does she still listen to these episodes?
No.
I didn't think so. She's like, I'll listen to a couple to support you, and then you're on your own.
Yep.
That's marriage for you guys.
Yep.
Well, that is all we've got for tonight. As always, thanks again for listening. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching. Hey everyone, welcome to Movies on a... What am I even doing?
Is that on purpose or no?
Nope, not on purpose at all. I don't even do the intro for Movies on a Monday. I don't know what I'm thinking.